Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Simon Jones, Director of Communications at Westco, and welcome to this webinar that we've organised with our very good friends at the Council Advertising Network on COVID vaccination. I'm joined by my colleagues who will introduce themselves as they go along. And just a note to say that we are recording the webinar so that we're able to share it with councils who are unable to attend. But by way of introduction, we know that everybody is grappling with the thorny issue of how we can support the vaccination programme in each of our local areas, particularly when it comes to building support for the programme and convincing those who may have doubts about taking up the vaccine, a big part of which, of course, is tackling misinformation. For us, this is a perfect example of how councils can really pull together to develop the most effective approach and share learning as we go along. In that spirit, Westco and the Council Advertising Network have been working hard over the past month or so to develop a campaign strategy and suite of assets that councils are free to use on your own channels and adapt where needed. It's been developed using behavioural insight, which aims to unlock barriers for specific audiences, which we'll be talking you through. As mentioned, the campaign is free for you to use on your own channels, but we'll also be talking about how you can significantly increase effectiveness by engaging very targeted audiences across the wider digital estate. And as we go through, please do post your questions or comments in the chat facility. We'll try and reply during the webinar, and we'll also hopefully get to as many of them as we can at the end. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Rishi, who will talk to you about the research into the campaign and what we know from that research.
Thanks, Simon. So as Simon mentioned, I'm going to talk about the research that's underpinned the strategy and the creative for this campaign. The research we did focused on two main areas. The first of which was about the prioritization and distribution of the vaccines, which obviously was really important in informing the strategy and creative. But what I'm going to talk to you about today was public opinion towards the vaccines. Just a little disclaimer. The polling I'm going to talk about today focuses largely on London, but we can help you access regional polling and develop local benchmarks so that you can create a strategy that's tailored to your audiences in your local areas. So to start with, YouGov ran a poll of Londoners in January and found that 76% of Londoners overall were likely to take a coronavirus vaccine if offered, with 15% saying they were unlikely. This is really good. This has increased since December, but there's still a sizable proportion of Londoners, 15%, who said they were unlikely to get the vaccine. And so the aim of the game is to get as many people getting the vaccine as possible. Possibly one of the most important findings of that survey was that people from BAME communities were less likely to say they were likely to get a vaccine, basically. So for comparison, 83% of white Londoners said they were likely to get the vaccine compared with 58% of black Londoners. And that's a really important finding from this survey because we already know that infection rates and morbidity and mortality rates were higher in BAME communities. And so there's this existing health inequality that could be compounded because of vaccine hesitancy in these groups. So our campaign's really focused and targeted at the groups that are particularly hesitant because it's really important to achieve high vaccine rates. So we looked at the barriers as well in the polling. And so the YouGov poll I'm talking about, which shares similarities with other polls that were conducted around about the same time, found that of those who are unlikely to get the vaccine, the main reason was they don't trust this vaccine specifically. 49% of those unlikely to get the vaccine said that, followed by they don't think the vaccine is safe, 40%, and would like to wait until others have had the vaccine first, 36%. And I think the key takeaway from this findings is that those unlikely to get the vaccine aren't necessarily anti-vaxxers. The majority of them are just people who are very worried about the speed at which these vaccines have been developed and what consequences it has on the safety and effectiveness of the vaccines. And we know that these vaccines actually have gone through the same amount of testing as other vaccines would have on, with less time pressure. So we know that the vaccines are safe and we know that they're effective. It's about persuading people that this is the case. We also did a bit of research around BAME communities and the reasons why they might be hesitant about vaccines as well. There's less polling on this, but newspaper articles, journal articles pointed towards a lack of trust in the healthcare systems and services because of evidence that people from these communities aren't necessarily always receiving the same level of care as their white counterparts. And so a key element of the campaign would have to be about building trust in these communities about the vaccines. So that's a brief overview of the top line research. So I think I'll hand over to Hannah now to talk about the creative.
Thanks, Rishi. So what I'm going to share with you all now is a suite of creative concepts which we have developed, which each pull at different behavioural triggers for different parts of the journey. So the first of our concepts is called the rumour mill. Now this tackles the issue of disinformation and misinformation and the importance of getting the facts right. So what we have here is a bold illustration which uses the visual metaphor of whispering for how fake news can spread. And the important message here is that misinformation can spread fast and that it's important to look for the facts and to visit trusted sites for that information. The second of our concepts looks at vaccinations through the years. And with this concept, history really does all of the work for us. As you can see here from the different vaccinations and the years in which they were launched, we've had a rich history of vaccinations for over 200 years, really being the pillars of our medical development. So for example, smallpox has been wiped out as a result of the vaccination. And when our audience look at the more recent ones, for example, meningitis, they will realise that, they've had many of these without any of their current hesitations around the COVID vaccine. Our next creative route is all about using a short 10-second time frame to tell people the simple facts, bust those myths around the vaccine in 10 simple seconds, because we know people's attention online is very, very short. So we wanted to actually use some of those tactics by having, strong, bold imagery, evocative headlines, the truth about the side effects of the vaccine, to draw people in, take them on a simple, plain English journey to tell those simple facts, and then direct them to more information from the NHS. And we've created 5 of these, which are based on the top 5 concerns from the MHRA and the YouGov polling that Rishi has described. So this one here talks about the side effects of the vaccine, the fact that they're mild, shouldn't last longer than a week, that they may include a sore arm, tiredness, headache, aches and sickness, and to find out more information, they can visit the NHS. And we have this initial series of these. We can grow these based on emerging fears and myths very quickly. But as an example here, we've got this one, which is about what's in the vaccine, the fact that it doesn't contain any animal products or egg. We have this one, which tackles the really important story about how the vaccine was produced so quickly because of the fact that the phases of the trials overlapped. The data was able to be reviewed earlier, and that obviously huge amounts of money was invested in this. We also have this one, which is about who the vaccine was tested on, which again is a really big emerging concern amongst audiences. But this one tells people, the age range that it has been tested on, the fact that it has been tested on people from a range of different ethnic backgrounds, including those with specific conditions. A big story, particularly over the last week, has been around pregnancy and whether it's safe or not to have the vaccination. So this one tells people that they should consider getting the vaccination if they are at high risk of exposure to the virus or have underlying health conditions. And importantly, all of this information has been checked and approved by contacts at the South West London NHS partnership, and it has all been signed off this week. And then finally, we have this one, which is around people waiting until others have tried the vaccine. But here we're telling people that over 5 million people have already had the vaccination, there haven't been any serious reactions, and that it is safe. So this next route is calling on the huge portion of our 80+ audience who have already had the vaccination. Now, many of these will be grandparents, the matriarchs and patriarchs of their families and their communities. And there's huge potential to call on this audience as advocates for the vaccination to spread the word about their positive experiences and the need for others to have it. So with this creative, we're asking them very simply to do 3 things. We want them to tell people that they've had the jab and that they're okay. We want them to ask their friends and family to find out the facts if they're concerned. And we want them to tell people that we all need the jab in order for the virus to be defeated. And again, we're directing people to trusted information from the NHS. We've created a few different variations of this creative because we also understand that photography can be really powerful. So we've got an example here featuring imagery from the BAME community, showing those key moments, people telling their friends and family that they've had it and that they're okay, more imagery of those powerful and important conversations, and also showing imagery of people actually having the vaccination so that we can really bring this home and get people to start visualizing themselves doing the same thing. Now we also know that nans and pops might not be the term that people use in different areas of the country, so we've got this covered. We've created multiple versions of the creative with the different terms that we might use for our grandparents. We also see there's huge potential with social care workers and care home workers who may have already had the vaccination, so we've created a version for them as well. And then finally, for this route, we want people to be able to share their experiences as quickly as possible. So we've created these shareable assets, which people will be able to go onto Facebook, Instagram, and share within a couple of clicks to show that they've had the vaccination and that they feel safe. Now, our next route is a really simple animation which gets across the powerful message that in order for the vaccination to be successful, we all need to get it. So it starts with an image representing the virus. Syringes will then appear around the perimeter, and then eventually the virus dissolves and disappears, leaving the powerful message that together we can get through COVID-19. Now, this next route is a bit different in that it really kind of pulls on people's emotions by showing those precious moments that people are missing. So here we have an image of someone on a sun lounger, and this is juxtaposed with the image of a hospital bed. Now, we're not saying that the vaccine is your passport back to these things, but it acts as a reminder that by not getting it, life is more likely to continue in a state of risk and restrictions. So we've got a series of these showing some of those different moments that people will very much be missing right now, seeing their friends and family in person as opposed to, on a screen over a Zoom call. The things that they might like to do, dance floors, festivals, compared with being in socially distanced queues and being stuck at home on the sofa with the remote control. Now, finally, this last route is all about spreading some positivity and hope. So this concept, again, focuses on some of those precious moments that we're all missing with the powerful messages that we want to spread hope and not heartache, possibility and not pain, and action and not agony. And we think these would really cut through, especially against a lot of the current bleak messaging, and give people a lot of hope and positivity. So I will now pass over to Tiffany, who will demonstrate a bit more detail about how these are effective in different parts of the user journey.
Thank you so much, Hannah, and hello everyone. I'm just going to share my screen too, if I may. So we have a behavior change model we use all the time, and we wanted to be able to share it with you. And really it's looking at what is the action you want to create with the result of your communications. So driving people from, not even considering whether they want to do your action, which in this case is vaccination, considering it, whether it's the right opportunity for them, to moving them to bought in, that prepared for action, but they haven't quite taken the action yet. So really moving them as easily as we can to the next action take up. And then once they've they've had that perhaps in maintenance and loyalty. And we know that there are digital and social media tactics that work really well at different stages of this behavior change model that we use, and we've displayed for you here, and we've got more detail around. So what we've done is applied this to this particular campaign and put here a light strategy that you can pick up and use if it's right for you and amongst your other communications, to look at what would you use when, where and why, and therefore there'll be attributes that work really well. Where does organic social media sit? Where does paid social media sit? Perhaps you want to get hold of your community manager in Nextdoor or local Facebook group admins, and we've plotted that out for you. But very briefly, just talking to Hannah's creative, there are creative assets here that work at different stages of that campaign. So that myth busting and addressing the myths early on, and looking at helping people understand why the vaccine has been created at speed, which we know safety and speed are, you know, two of the big barriers, particularly for this audience. And actually, what does life look like? Trying to get people back to that. Now, we know amongst NHS and central government communications, as well as the change of tiers, that there'll be different communications coming out. So we have thought even further about more structured creative communication when we move into those phases. But this pack really is focusing for you on moving people along that journey with a strategy behind it. We've created a content calendar, again, which has the assets which are sized right for social media, and a downloadable pack, and suggested text. We call it suggested because, of course, it must be tailored to your council, as I'm sure you might want the images to be too, as well as in your branding, and we can help that too. But it's there for you as a pack. And I will, that's a kind of bit of the organic journey and what's available for you. I'm going to pass you over to JP now, who's going to show us how it could really motor.
Thank you, Tiff. Hello, everyone. So my role in all of this is to take the wonderful creative and your own community voices and amplify them. The risk is that a few weeks from now, we haven't reached, or we've only reached a low proportion of our target audiences. And also that we've achieved insufficient frequency to drown out some of the messages that are out there and socially norm the taking of the vaccine amongst specific communities. And this would mean that we would reduce vaccine hesitancy too slowly in order to have an impact. So what do we do? Well, CAN use programmatic advertising to interact with all online media consumption. All of your target audiences will be consuming on their mobiles or on their desktop devices social, news, information, video portals. And programmatic lets you be there in front of them. We can normally achieve over 95% reach of any target audience within a week. And we can also achieve a frequency of between 5 to 10 in that time period as well. Sometimes we can go faster. Let me show you what this actually looks like. So, for example, in a London borough, someone consuming the Jamaican Observer, we would assume, has some sort of interest in Jamaica, maybe from there, may have family over there. So what we can do is we can buy programmatically the ad space on these sites. We can also then place community voices into the pre-roll video slots from GPs, community leaders, respected individuals in the community into those places, so that what we can do then is flood out, and this is a live example that we're just using to illustrate, we can flood out these certain places with a range of different messages. You wouldn't necessarily buy 6 impressions on one page, but it's possible at a high frequency. And what that can be is a mixture of your local messages and the suite that Hannah's put together. We can also target, music and culture and even sermons and things like that on YouTube and other video platforms. And we're delivering those messages absolutely, but we're also constantly measuring to give you a local benchmark of vaccine hesitancy and also to see where the areas of most concern are. The neat thing about this approach is, depending on people's answers, you can give them different messaging treatments afterwards and then encourage them to take the survey again to see if we've shifted vaccine hesitancy at all. So within a couple of weeks of being up and running, we can give you a benchmark, and we can also demonstrate that the comms are hopefully reducing vaccine hesitancy. When we tried and tested a whole range of approaches. In London, we were delivering multilingual creatives, but then also force translating the landing page. So this is an NHS site, but this would work with the council site, with the job form and everything like that. So you have that consistency of user experience from translated ad through to translated landing page. Our approach with this campaign was also something that we've tested in North East London just before Christmas with 7 boroughs at the same time. Anyone that takes this approach, we will report on as a group. And so you will be able to see, firstly, what's happening in your area and what's happening in others. But then critically, we'll take really high-performing tactics, creatives, approaches, and automatically apply them across the group, with your approval, obviously, and making sure that the content is appropriate for the area. So this approach, we found, generates far more outcomes for budget than other approaches. Our AdOps at the moment are working on estimates for every participant in this webinar. So after this, I believe the intention is to share the pack, but we can also show you various frequencies and various options that you might have for moving forward. That is a lightning quick overview. Any questions, please answer, but I'll hand back to Simon.
Thanks, JP. That's a fantastic overview of how we can help you to create and deliver the most effective campaign possible. We've got there's been some really helpful comments in the chat facility with feedback. Part of today is getting that feedback and some really helpful comments, which will certainly be taken into account and acting upon. And I think also good to see some really positive remarks about the quality of the creative as well. So that's really good. But we've got time, just maybe 5 minutes or so, for any other questions. If anyone's brave enough to either put their hand up or come straight in with an observation or question.
I think there was something for Hannah. 2 people have mentioned the issue that feeling safe might create a behaviour where people then just go back to normal, and that's not the idea. Hannah, this has come up before. What would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was a really helpful point, particularly on the shareable assets with the message, I've had the vaccine and I now feel safe. And I think the suggestion of having that as I feel safer is a really helpful piece of feedback that we will look at. Yeah. In terms of the wider issue of getting the message across that once people have had the vaccine, it's not straight back to normal, and we still need to do all the important things. That's another part of the campaign which we will be looking at as an additional phase. Cool, thanks, Hannah. I think Jane, I saw you physically put your hand up.
I did. Can you hear me? Because I can't find my mute. Just wanted to say thank you very much. And I have probably missed this, but all the creatives you've done, are they for everybody to share and to use?
Absolutely, yes, indeed. And I'll be coming on to that in a second in terms of how you can access them and how you can get hold of the slide deck as well. So yes, absolutely intended for everyone to share and use.
Fabulous, thank you.
Cool. Any other questions or observations?
There's a question about the digitally excluded groups. So people who aren't online. Simon, do you want to?
Yeah, I guess the point to make is that this campaign is designed to complement really your own sort of local campaigns as well. So we're not suggesting this is everything that you'd want to do. Each council will want to look at kind of specific things they want to do alongside this as well, and that would include, of course, looking at how we can target people who aren't online as well. So this is to say the point of what we're doing here is very much to complement really and enhance what perhaps you're looking to do already locally.
And there's another question from Lewis about how you're getting around blocks around use of the word COVID. Very good question. Facebook, different platforms have different rules, different approval processes. So we buy across Facebook, Snapchat, Google 360, AppNexus, a whole range of different platforms. And we've got some experience asking for human interventions and getting things live. It's not uniform in terms of what gets blocked and what doesn't, but this is where the multivariate approach is really strong. So even if some creatives don't get approved, you'll still have a body of information going out there reaching the audiences.
Cool, thanks JP. Any other quick questions before we get on to the most important bit about what happens next.
There was a question about younger people. They're not, I think, they're not the total focus at the beginning, but will become that. So, and I think it's applying the same principles to those groups. Then using different channels, so Snapchat, YouTube, Instagram. Those have proven themselves fantastic for previous COVID messaging for that cohort.
Cool. I can see more questions and comments flooding into the chat facility.
There was a question about balancing PHE assets with these assets. So yeah, the idea is to create a pool, your local community voices, public health assets, and this suite, deploy all of them and see which ones are resonating and working best. So our approach is, after a little bit of data has been collected, we'll start reducing delivery of the underperforming, they're not creating that much interaction, so we'll cut them and we'll increase investment in the things that do work. And that will work across the whole group as well.
Yeah, and that means obviously sharing content, doesn't it, JP, as well? That's the most effective as we go through the campaign. Excellent. Okay, so I'm just going to come on. I'm just going to wrap up now, really, and sort of talk about the next bit, really, and the important thing. We've produced a slide deck which has a lot more detail than what you've seen today. It also includes all the creative assets along with details of how you can access them. If you would like the slide deck or have any other questions, and please do not hesitate to email me. Hopefully you can use that, see that on screen. My email address there is sjones3@westminster.gov.uk. But I'll also be pinging around an email as well after this just to thank people for attending. And indeed, through the information that we'll be providing you, they will also have specifics of how the campaign can be implemented across the wider digital estates in each of your area. So that's it. We kind of look forward to continuing the conversation with you. We hope you found this interesting and useful, and look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks very much.